I'm glad you could join us today. Welcome to the webinar, Successfully Managing a Remote Workforce. My name is Angie Fiedler-Sutton, and I'm with the Behavioral Health Association Providers. The Behavioral Health Association Providers, BHAP, is a national trade membership association that provides education and advocacy for behavioral healthcare providers and related entities. Formerly known as the American Addiction Treatment Association, BHAP is the leading and unifying voice of addiction-focused treatment programs. We provide membership benefits such as networking and access to compliance information, education opportunities such as this webinar, and our Certificate in Addiction Treatment Marketing, CATM, and advocacy efforts to keep those in the industry aware of new laws and regulations that may be coming that will affect them. Working in the behavioral health industry or managing an organization in the industry can be incredibly complex and filled with ever-changing information. BHAP gives you the resources to stay on top of the rules and regulations for your organization to stay compliant. For more information about BHAP, you can visit our website at www.bhap.us. Before we begin the webinar, a few housekeeping details. You will be able to hear us, but we won't be able to hear you. That's because we record these webinars, so you have access to them later if you need them. However, if you have questions or concerns, you can use the chat room. You don't need to wait until the end for questions. We will be moderating them as needed. I will be sending a link to access both the webinar and the PDF of the slides via email after the event. We're also putting them in the handouts tab right now. The email will also include an evaluation form. If you fill it out within 7 days, you'll get a discount code good for 10% off any of our webinars that are currently for sale. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our presenter today. Ashley Loeb Blassingame is a co-founder of Lionrock and member of the executive team. She leads talent acquisition operations, building Lionrock's team to support the company's growth. She was responsible for social media engagement and deepening Lionrock's community. Ashley is a member of the Office of the Clinical Director, collaborating with Lionrock's clinical leadership on key business issues. Ashley is a certified alcohol and drug counselor too, a certified relapse prevention specialist, and a certified Arise interventionist. She holds a bachelor's degree from the University of California at Los Angeles. Ashley co-directs the Health Tech Women LA Hub, a global syndicate of women in health and technology. Ashley, thank you for taking the time to present today. With that, I will hand the webinar over to you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Hello, everybody. My name is Ashley Loeb Blassingame, and you just heard my intro. Thank you for that. I am the co-founder and chief people officer of Lionrock Recovery, and I am really happy to be here with all of you. It looks like we have 12 people here, so welcome, everyone. I have been managing online teams for about 10 years now, starting Lionrock in 2010. This webinar is going to where I'll address and give recommendations surrounding best practices to help successfully manage a workforce that has moved from in-office to remote work due to recent business model changes set in motion by the pandemic. You will gain a deeper knowledge of how to make simple yet significant shifts in the team's workday structure to achieve greater success in communication, engagement, and output. So for the last decade, Lionrock, we have been focused on building a telehealth substance abuse treatment program. We thought we might end up with a central headquarters at some point where most of the team would work. But as we grew, most of us continued to work successfully at home. And our business model has grown to accommodate that. With the COVID-19 pandemic, things have changed the way that the workforce collaborates daily for the foreseeable future. Many businesses that previously depended heavily on in-person communication are now being forced to navigate uncharted waters of building a business virtually and all the pressure of doing it quickly and successfully. So in this session, you will learn about best practices on managing a remote workforce, including setting new expectations for employees remotely, focusing on outcomes versus processes, how to invest in employees to better equip them to work virtually, and virtual communication best practices. As I have a bunch of notes here, I'm going to do my best not to read them verbatim. First thing I want to do, just to kind of break the ice, is to ask you guys a question with a poll. So I'm going to share this now. The question is, if you go on the right-hand side of your screen, there's chat, polls, and handouts. If you go to polls, how many of you have managed a remote workforce of more than 3 people before COVID-19? So I'd love to see your answers. Okay, great. Everybody's giving me some awesome answers here. Okay, cool. So it looks like most people at this point are no or less than 3 people. Okay, great. That's very helpful. Thank you. Anyone who's coming in, please feel free to take that poll, and also feel free to put in questions, in the chat, and I will happily answer them. I want this to be as useful for you guys as possible. So we are going to start here. Okay, so I gave you my overview. Sorry, I missed this. We're going to start here. So setting expectations for employees who are working remotely. That's where I want to start with you guys. So online engagement expectations for video conferencing. So I apologize. I call this the rules of engagement, okay? So a big thing that we do at Lionrock that's important is utilizing desktop video. So no phones, no iPads, tablets, what have you. This keeps the workplace professional, so it doesn't feel like people are bopping around on their tablet. Everybody is stable and paying attention. So utilizing that desktop video, most machines now have built-in cameras. You can also buy external cameras that plug into any computer that does not have a built-in camera. This gives you guidelines, and it's important to have guidelines around expectations that maintain the structure and accountability of your team. So setting expectations for your video meetings. When we first started doing this, we were obviously small, a group of us, and as we've grown, it has become more and more important to set expectations that we never considered, that we thought were obvious. For example, workplace dress. How should they show up? How should everyone show up in their meetings? What should be obvious, or what you think is obvious, not always obvious. So it's really important to say what workplace dress, what showing up on video should look like. That will be interpreted differently, so giving people some guidelines and expectations. Background. Do you require a backdrop? For example, at Lionrock, we provide everybody with a green screen and a logo to use. And so they have this backdrop and we give them multiple logos, so they get to choose, and it's kind of fun. Or people sometimes put up creative virtual backgrounds. This is an option that you can look at. Do you want people's backgrounds to all be the same? This adds a level of professionality. Is everyone expected to be on video? So if yes, what is your policy if someone shows up and they're not on video? This happens a lot. And sometimes there are good reasons. So we have set up parameters for particularly big staff meetings. If someone is going to show, it's very, very important. We're paying people to be in the staff meeting. We need to know that they're absorbing the information, that they're engaged. If they're going to show up without their video on, they need to have spoken with their supervisor first and let them know why. Usually there's a good reason, but it's really important to keep that accountability and to have a process in place for when someone shows up not on camera, how you're going to work with that, how you're going to talk to them. COVID has thrown a curveball for most people, almost all of us. So if many people, I have been hearing about many people having kids at home, they're homeschooling them, they may be present in the same room. So this is where it's really important to discuss with your teams and managers to help them through the process. When someone has their children home with no childcare, they need to be brainstorming with their manager how they will get that work done, and how the company can be both supportive while also getting the needs of the company met. So this is done in one-to-one meetings, check-ins with employees, ask them what their circumstances are. Do they expect to have children at home? Do they expect to be homeschooling? Really just check in with your workforce and find out what you're going to be dealing with, and then brainstorm ideas. I put on here really, really important to have one-to-one meetings to catch any issues before they arise, because you don't have that, what we call water cooler talk. You don't have that, walking by the desk, just chat. So it's really important to have these one-to-one meetings. It keeps employees informed and connected to their managers and encourages open communication. And when working with an online workforce, everything needs to be over communicated. So tips for an effective online meeting: have an email agenda with highlights beforehand. So send that out to everybody. Certain people can edit it and add things. Who's going to say what, and keeping that agenda, that keeps everybody really on track. Also, you will see that people have the urge to socialize more than maybe they would have because they haven't seen each other and they're starved for social interaction. So you'll see that in your meetings. We plan some time before the meeting starts. We call it, open time or coffee hour before a meeting starts for people to get that going. Have projects, points, or a list to go over based on deadlines and meetings for that week. Ask your team members to email anything that you would like to review and to add to the agenda beforehand. Next part is defining work hours. Okay, so we holding consistent scheduled meetings, but also defining work hours. So determine if your employees should be available remotely within their previous defined work hours at the office, or if they are responsible for completing a certain amount of hours during the day, but with a flexible schedule. Be in contact with your employees who are parents as school starts. This is going to be really important in our post-COVID era. Employees should be reachable during the day. How? Should they be reachable during the day through video and online meetings? Should they be reachable through email, phone, text, or a chat-enabled system like Slack or Google Hangouts? This really, again, depends on the team. I have some teams that really like to use Slack. I have other teams that use Google Hangouts. I have the executive team. We have our Zoom is on all day, so someone can request a Zoom meeting in the actual management while we're working. That sometimes is a good idea and sometimes not, but that is something that we do. So really defining what the work hours should be and how people should be able to be reached during the day. Okay. So focusing on outputs versus processes. This is very, very important when making the shift to being online, because it's not something that is normal in a corporate setting or in the day-to-day setting. You have the ability to work with people or ask for certain processes and then oversee that with many of your operations, of course, not all. But the overall idea around this is it's very important to trust people that you're working with, especially when we're working remotely. I cannot stress this enough. This includes letting go of many processes with which you used to have control over and shifting your focus to the outcomes. It creates internal motivation, and internal motivation is invaluable when you're working remotely. You have to have that. You don't have people motivating each other quite in the same way. So focusing on outputs versus processes. Focus on getting the job done versus getting the job done your way, right? This is a truism in parenting too, maybe in partnerships and relationships as well. Really allowing people the space to get the job done, unless there is a very specific reason that you need to tell them how. Ask them. What we often do is ask them how they'd like to get the job done, unless there's a specific reason to tell them how. And when you ask them that they would like to get the job done, you can offer feedback, and that loops you in. That opens those lines of communication. But it's just, again, it's really important to have that trust. It also gives managers the opportunity to get to know their employees better, how they like to work. It opens up this line of communication around, this is how I see things, this is how I think this should be done. Sometimes you get insights that you did not have before when you were mandating a certain process. I have had situations where employees told me about their process, and I realized that their process is superior to my own, and suggested that to other people, and we went with that. So it creates that buy-in. It also immediately shows that you respect and trust their ability as an employee and an integral part of the company. And when you're in a remote workforce, people feeling a part of that company is so important, because you're not going to have that in the same way that you'd have it when everybody's in the same building or something of that, or seeing each other however you did it before. So it encourages creativity and leadership, and it gives them ownership in the company and in the process. Allow employees the space to innovate, have them share, as I said, suggestions on how they continuously improve their performance. Have high performers share tips with you and their team members to increase camaraderie and productivity. You'd be amazed at how many great ideas and processes people, and bad ones, I will say that too, processes people come up with when they get the freedom to try things. And in management one-on-ones, ask employees to give themselves feedback first. So this encourages honest introspection and trust. So you open the one-on-one, usually we have some sort of agenda for the one-on-one, what we want to discuss, just to keep us somewhat organized and on task. And the first thing that we do is ask them to give us feedback on how they're doing and how their processes are. You'll hear and gather a lot more information, particularly those of us in the behavioral health field who have training, in understanding nuance to language. You will hear a lot about what's going on with people. I find it really helpful to get them to give themselves this feedback first. Okay, how to invest in employees to better equip them to work remotely. Okay, so a large amount of the workforce has obviously been working home since March of this year, and many companies and teams have been able to work out the irregularities since then. We've still seen a lot of challenges for companies who are continuing to switch their offices to completely online on a more ongoing basis. You may find that some employees are much more well-versed in an online environment. I see 3 of you have managed a remote workforce of more than 3 people before COVID, 3 out of everyone on this webinar. So investing in your employees' success online can look a couple different ways. So hold company-wide technology training sessions. So this, I'm going to read my little note here and then give you a caveat. So hold a mandatory online training session on new technology introduced, or hold a review session on existing technology that is used. Okay. It's important to figure out ways for people not to glaze over while you're teaching these things, because as with anything, even this webinar, you hear someone talking at you for too long, people get bored and they don't absorb as much. So having some sort of way to keep it interactive, to have people watch a video and then answer questions. There's lots of different ways to make the training interactive, and you just have to go with what your culture is and how many people are going to be in this training. But hold mandatory online training session on new technology that's introduced, and on a regular basis, because one time of seeing the material is not enough. So what we do is we create training videos that people can review on their own time, in addition to having those trainings. So we utilize learning management software for a seamless process, things like Lessonly or Docebo. Those are, learning. If you look up learning management software, you can find a lot of different ones that allow you, kind of like the online schools, they'll give you a bunch of different ways to learn the technology, watch a video, take a test, interactive, answer questions. This has been really, really helpful, so that onboarding new people, having new processes, being able to send this out. I cannot stress enough training videos. And they do need to be updated regularly. However, it's still pales in comparison to having to teach the same thing over and over again. And people can review it on their own time. So introducing new technology or processes in a weekly team meeting, walk through the workflow together, ask for feedback from the team on any inconsistencies. They will help you pick up those inconsistencies. Providing updated equipment for employees, video cameras for online meetings. Logitech has some great ones that you can order on Amazon. Headphones for a meeting. This cuts out unnecessary background noise. I think most of us at this point are used to doing that in Zoom meetings with Zoom fatigue and all that. Background design and green screen if needed for a meeting with clients, which gives a professional background. You can get pretty inexpensive green screens on Amazon. Second screen monitor. Okay, so a second screen monitor is huge. Having 2 screens to work on increases productivity. If I get everybody's email, I can send you, I didn't prepare for that. I can send you some of the studies that show that having a second screen to plug into really increases productivity. I have found this to be huge, particularly for your salespeople, and the screens are not expensive. So buying the second monitor for your people at home. Companies with larger budgets or companies in specific industries such as media, providing updated phones, laptops, or computers for employees to utilize if high quality output is required, or if you want to make sure, for security purposes, that kind of thing. Consider offering free resources to help with the added stress of coping with changes from working from home and other pandemic ripple effects. Online meditations and stretch classes. There are many that are free and donation based. Online team bonding. I have one team that every week they pick at their team meeting, every week they pick a song and a music video, and they play that song and music video as the meeting opens, and they have a dance party. And everybody gets out of their seats and dances, and they do this dance party to whatever song it is every week. And I believe they don't know what the song is going to be beforehand, but it's a that may not be it for every team, but really fun thing to do. Sometimes I have people in other meetings share a success that they've had with a client, or these are things that we can obviously do in person, but it's really important to make sure that they are built into what you're doing in your meetings. Stress management, personal investment classes. There are a lot of online meditation, stretch classes. I know my sister works for a tech company in Silicon Valley, and they have someone come and lead a group meditation for people at work, which also is a bonding exercise for people. They come in and do that. So we have I think an online yoga class for our teams. Communication best practices. Okay, so this is super key. It seems somewhat obvious, but it is really, really important to talk about, because over the 10 years that I have been doing this, the telling people to over communicate just does not do what we do justice, and does not really explain how important some of these things are. So in an online work environment, employees and management must over communicate with each other. This is where we see the biggest snags, and this is where your sense of community is built and will continue to grow or not. So maintain consistent communication with the workforce. It is very important to follow the organizational structure, especially when working. It's much easier to go above someone's head, or people to feel disrespected by a contact, or not being looped into different emails. So a lot can happen. I think we've all been in a situation where we've sent a text message and the tone of voice wasn't there to go along with it. There was misunderstandings. That stuff happens in a remote workforce. And so it is really important to be on top of communication, or you will have entanglements left and right that distract from the work that you need to be doing. So Key managers meeting with other key managers regularly to stay in communication and know what the other teams are doing. Hold weekly team meetings for each individual team, and managers meet one-to-one with employees weekly. It's a lot of meetings, but it's in those meetings, during those that face time, it's really important to team building. And as we know in treatment and in the behavioral health world, a program is only as good as its people, and its people are only as good as their connections to one another. So encourage management. This is something that we have done in the last couple of years. Encourage management to attend other departmental meetings that affect their departments, both directly and indirectly. So again, I can tell you, as being in management, this is super annoying to have to add more meetings to your list. However, the value that you get from going and sitting in other meetings, even if you don't do it weekly, if you do it on a semi-regular basis, going and sitting in other departmental staff meetings, you know, it depends on how big your company is, but for us, going and sitting in on you know, other staff meetings of other departments has led our managers to be able to have a much better understanding of what's going on and add context in management meetings to things that may come up through an email that don't give the whole context or don't have the tone. And so having people be a part of multiple departments and sit in on these meetings, so valuable. So it allows management to feel connected to other parts of your business, and they're usually making decisions around that. So it's important to have direct contact with those people. The FaceTime is extremely valuable. And when I say FaceTime, I mean on camera video conferencing, not email, not phone call, not text. So over communicate. I think I say this probably about 10 times a day. Over communicate. So be sure to circle back, follow up with emails, make sure every single person involved in a project or a team is CC'd on an email when updates get rolled out. I cannot tell you how many times there's one person left off of something, and not only are they uninformed, but they're not happy about being left out of something in which they were had an integral part, and it happens accidentally. So over communicate in video meetings. So designate someone to take the meeting minutes and distribute afterwards. Really important to have a log of the things that you're discussed. And if you feel like you've communicated something well, check again. Regularly clarify what the focus and goals of the team are to keep people on the same page. So for those, you know, therapists, counselors, this is what I heard you say. Task management or project management software may be helpful in this communication. Task management software like Monday.com. I have a couple teams that love project management software, Trello and Asana. Communication between teams. I said I had a team that uses Slack, and set deadlines for email communication. So respond to emails within 20 to 48 hours, etc. Keep the personal feel that you had in the office. Check in with your employees. How's your family doing? How are you doing balancing work? There can be an urge to get off the video meeting as quickly as possible. A lot of people aren't used to being on camera. They want to get to the point. They want to get to business. But it's really important to keep that social and emotional connection by asking those questions, taking the time to have those conversations, either in the beginning or at the end of meetings. So when you're working remotely, as you guys know, there's limited unintentional interactions and fewer group interactions where people can meet and share stories or recognition. It is really valuable and important to increase recognition. Your employees need more recognition than they did before. So with your sales team, that means a lot of recognition. So they may find themselves feeling unsure about where to focus. They may want help clarifying goals. Make sure to check in during one-on-ones with them about how they feel things are going, where they're struggling with remote work and time management. this increased recognition also makes employees feel seen and heard, especially during extra stress adding during the pandemic. I know some companies, my husband works for a company where they are sending out trophies. I mean, this may be over the top, or sending out branded beach towels for people who are doing particularly well. We do raffles for gift cards, and we do, sharing people's stats. So, whatever the recognition looks like in your company, you'd have to tailor it to that. That is just so important to keeping people feeling connected. I'm going to hop over to the chat and see, I see the questions and I want to answer them. So let me see here. Okay, Victor. Hi, do you guys plan the little social interaction before the meeting start? Like 5 minutes, or do you include on the hour of the meeting? Example, will you start professional meeting at 8 a.m.? What time do you do the social interactions? 5 minutes before 8 or 8 to 8:10, for example? Great question. So I have people do it a little bit differently. I have my admissions team. They have a coffee hour that starts half an hour. It's either a half an hour or 45 minutes before the meeting. And they literally have it on the calendar called admissions coffee hour. They hop on and talk to each other. It's not mandatory. So the difference you would have between that and if you have it before the meeting, we make it not mandatory. So you get whoever wants to be there. If you make it at the start of the meeting, right, in the first 10 minutes, everybody is going to be there. So we decided that the admissions team rather decided that having it that time before, so that people who wanted to participate really led to more authentic interactions. So that's what they've done. My management team, we have been working together for so long that all of our meetings start off that way anyway. So it's kind of just part of the process. We all start off and people kind of come in the first 5 to 10 minutes, and we all start off just chatting, catching up, that kind of thing. So I would say that it really depends on your team and whether or not you want it to feel mandatory, and how chatty your team is. If they need encouragement to be chatty, then you probably want to start it at 8 when the meeting starts. And if they need encouragement to not be chatty, you probably want to give them 45 minutes before. Okay, how do you guys manage employees who are driving during the meeting? I feel bad to say something to them, but it's risky. It's absolutely unacceptable. We do not allow it. And unless you, so let me back up. So we absolutely don't allow clients to drive while they're doing their meetings, any group, individual. With employees, if they have their camera on and they're driving, not okay. It's too dangerous. People who are in their car and for some reason need to join a meeting from their vehicle, they need to stop the vehicle and pull over. And they need to have asked their supervisor beforehand for permission to do the meeting on the road. In the beginning of the presentation, I said how important it is for people to be on the desktop, to be really engaged. If you want someone really engaged, that's important. Now, if you have a more casual atmosphere and you say, I don't want to require people to be at their desktop, but I don't want them driving, you can ask them to pull over and be stationary during the duration of the meeting, or just listen to the meeting. But it depends on how engaged you want them to be. If you just want them listening to the meeting, if this is a regular occurrence versus a specific situation. So for us, for example, staff meetings, you have to have your camera on and you have to be stationary unless there is some reason that you have given to your supervisor for why that is not the case. Okay, let's see here. What do you do if an employee is checked out or not showing up to scheduled meetings remotely. We do what, honestly, we do what you would do in any other situation, whether remote or otherwise. We have a one-on-one with them. We maybe do a write-up with them on not showing up to meetings. I think the bigger, I'll answer this question, but the bigger question around this is about the fact that working remotely is working. Working remotely is, you have a real job. And this is something that was very hard for a lot of people to grasp coming in at first, and now something that we have put a lot of things in place so that people understand. But when you work from home, when you are working remotely, you are working. You have a job, you have an office space, you have a schedule, you have goals. It is the same. Your office is simply at home, and having your office space set up to accommodate that, having a good light, having, a second screen, having a desk, a proper desk, a comfortable chair, a quiet space where people can't just run in and interrupt you. All of those things are really important and part of the job. For us, we can see when people sign on to, when people are logged in, the last time they logged into their email, the last time they logged into our CRM, the last time they logged into our EHR, our electronic health records, the last time they logged into Zoom. We can see all of those things. So we can see if people aren't working, and not showing up to a scheduled meeting is akin to not showing up to a scheduled meeting that you're supposed to be in person. And if that person consistently doesn't do that, it is a fireable offense. Okay, Christiana, also, if an employee's connectivity is lacking, Wi-Fi, do you pay for it or require them to? What are your requirements for technology for new and existing employees? Okay, so I'll tell you what we do. I'm not sure what the answer would be for other people, but I'll tell you what we do. So for existing employees, we usually pay because we hired them, and okay, let me back up. For new employees, when we hire people, we have them do a tech check. We check their Wi-Fi. We have them do an upload and download speed. They are required to give us the upload and download speed based on that technology check in the place where they're going to be working, in the office, in the room with the Wi-Fi. And in order to work at our company, you need to have a certain level of Wi-Fi. So you won't get hired if you have an upload and download speed that are not sufficient enough to uphold regular video conferencing. And so you would be required to upgrade your system, your Wi-Fi, to the minimum requirements in order to be hired. If you are an employee and you come and request help to have the Wi-Fi, like for people who've transitioned to working online from post-COVID, we have helped people. We have helped either stipend or helped pay to give people an upgrade for their technology or for their internet connection. So I think that kind of depends on whether and how long you plan on doing this, what the other options are. But we do, because you would have been providing an office space for them before COVID and you would have been paying for their Wi-Fi, then the logic for me would follow that you would help pay for them if they needed to transition to new office space that they have kept with a specific requirement for that. Victor, update on people on the Zoom meeting. Tips to how to descale those rude conversations. So I'm assuming you mean rude conversations in terms of the chat or in terms of rude conversations in like over video? I'll just do an answer for both. So rude conversations, honestly, we do scale them the same way that we would do sitting in a group meeting, which is we say to, if someone's being rude to one another, or if there's we say, let's take this offline. That's something we say a lot when we don't want to have the conversation right there. Hey guys, you know what? Let's take this online. I'm sorry, take this offline. Let's take this offline. So that's something that we say a lot, and that means, we're not going to talk about this here anymore. So if there's an actual verbal conversation going on, we also, I send people private messages and say, this needs to stop, or, hey, now's not the time for that. Again, let's take this offline. In Zoom, you can also, if your issue in Zoom is through the chat, you can make it so that the only chat that goes on are public, to everyone. So people can only chat to everyone, or they can only chat to everyone and privately to the host. So there are all sorts, or you can get rid of the chat altogether. So if you find your team being really distracted by the chat, there are ways to change that in your settings so that people don't have the opportunity to be super distracted and have rude conversations. But again, if you have people having rude conversations in the actual verbally in your meetings, I would ask them to take, we say, we need to take this offline. And then I would have a conversation with them about, Zoom etiquette. This is where the training and the videos and the handouts and the conversations come in of what your expectations are. So because post-COVID expectations, norms have changed, it is really important to say things which honestly, most of us probably don't understand why we would have to say this, but things like, you need to wear a shirt that covers, I don't know, your whole top when you come to a meeting, because otherwise it looks like you're naked. You need to have a quiet background. You need to not be driving. You need to, like, those types of things. So with the rude conversations, you can set parameters around people talk to each other in the platform. How do you keep track of, okay, here we go. How do you keep track of employees working flex hours during the day? Meaning, how can you tell they work a full day as they flex through the day between homeschooling, etc.? So this comes back to trusting your employees, focusing on outputs versus processes, particularly in the post-COVID era, and creating and defining your goals and expectations. So there's a couple different ways that we do this. With certain employees, like admissions, they have to be seated at their desk for certain hours, like a call center. They need to be seated at their desk. We can see them logged in. We can see their activity on the back end. So all of that is doable. If they need to take a break, or if they need to sign offline for a little bit or something, they just let their manager know. So that's kind of how that works. For other people on the team, with the flex hours, depending on how casual your company is, I have teams where they have certain goals they have to meet, and I'm not really paying attention to hours during the day. I think for the most part, our expectation is really that you're going to work most of the hours during the day, whether that's 6 a.m. to 3 p.m., 2 p.m. or 9 to 5 is pretty irrelevant to me personally, but it requires you to show up at all your meetings and be available to any of your direct reports. But if you need to go off to a doctor's appointment or whatever, you just let someone know. Or, hey, I'm not going to be available. I know that in some of the tech companies that my family is a part of, they have a shared calendar, and in their calendar, everybody can see kind of what they're doing. And they block off, they say block off time. Say I want to go to a doctor's appointment, they would just block off time in their calendar that they're not going to be available. Other people, if they're using a chat management system like Slack, they just have Slack, their Slack is unavailable. So it really depends on what the job is, what you want it to look like. Again, you can make it look however you want. I personally do not want to track anyone's hours. And the people that I hire to work for me, again, this is my personal, the people that I hire to work for me do not need to be micromanaged at all. So I don't care as long as the work is getting done. So that's where I'm really focused on outputs. Are we going to get this project done on time? Did we get it in on time? That kind of thing. If they want to work at 3 in the morning, that's fine. As long as if I have something to talk to them about, a meeting, they're available at that time for that meeting. How often do you schedule remote one-on-one meetings with employees, and what do you cover during those? So weekly one-on-one meetings to check in. And for my direct reports, I do some of them in video and some of them on the phone, because I'm seeing them in other meetings all throughout the week. So that's kind of a fun thing for me, is I can, with some of my direct reports, we do their one-on-one as a phone call, and we go on a walk together. So, I mean, on the phone, and we do their one-on-one. Obviously, if we need to go over something that's on screen, we'll do it on Zoom. But I only do that with people that I have been in meetings all week with. So we've gone over a lot of things. We've had a lot of contact, and I'm just doing a check-in one-on-one with them. So that's kind of a nice perk of that remote work, but weekly. And what do you cover during those? So again, if I've been in meetings with them all week, a lot of the time we just catch up on how they're doing, what they need help with, what they're seeing. You know, I'm seeing that recruiting really needs admin support. What do you think about that? So if I'm, some other of my meetings, we have a very specific agenda, and we go through what's on the agenda, what we need to accomplish by when, and we put it into a project management software format so that we're both on the same page. So it really depends on the department, on the topics, on how often if you've had face-to-face contact with them. But I do encourage most one-on-ones, unless again you've had regular contact with your direct report, to be on video, to be in video with people as much as possible. I think that I have answered all the questions. I do see, okay, oh wait, is there another? Oh, any other questions? I do see, while I'm waiting for questions, that Angie has said that one of BHAP's member benefits is member deals, which includes discounts to the Calm app. So that's exciting. And our presenters teach. So we have a presenter that that BHAP has used, that teaches on the Insight Timer app, where he is the host of Spiritual Sobriety, and he teaches on how to practice spirituality from the Buddhist and 12-step perspectives. Awesome. Love that. Great, great. Any other questions that I can answer?
We just got another question. Any more ideas for employee recognition among the staff?
Oh yeah, great question. This stuff is actually really fun. I find the employee recognition stuff kind of fun. So we do contests. Okay, so employee recognition can be done. Some of this stuff can be data based. So if we collect an enormous amount of data. So with our therapists, sometimes people who have the highest client retention, and you can do client retention contests, or client retention, or just like attendance prizes. So gift cards, recognition, shout outs in staff meeting. We do shout outs in staff wide emails. Sometimes we'll get a client will tell a story from their admissions experience and we'll share that. We do things like, again, the branded gear, t-shirts. We just sent everybody Lionrock Recovery Yeti tumbler mugs for coffee, and we sent them out to everybody with a thank you card and a little card that has our mission statement in it, our creed. And so that was fun. We are doing this was pre-COVID, but we're doing a convention, Lionrock Con in Denver, and we're going to have everybody come and pay for a weekend in Denver to get to know each other and do ropes courses and all different fun stuff. We have done lunches where we used to do offsites where we would fly everybody on a certain team into usually into the Orange County area, and we would buy everybody lunch and do something fun for that day. And since COVID, since we've had to change that, we give everybody money, a specific amount of money, or you reimburse money. So everybody buys lunch, maybe they DoorDash it or bring it or whatever. And then we have a meeting and we eat lunch together. So recognizing them that way. Raffles, there's a lot of great ideas online, and if you want a list of ideas, we run drug court. We'd like to recognize our lab technician who single-handedly continued Rockstar status. So that's amazing. For me, something like that, you might do. We did a detox kit, which is a kit. Let me see if I can actually find for you. I think I have a 5-minute warning, and if you email me, I can find out what it is. But it's basically a electronics, a technology detox kit, and it came with all these different cool things in it that you can detox from the technology and take a break from that. You could give them a massage, something for a massage when things open up, like those kind of self-pampering things. But I have, yes. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Joanna, if you want to email me, I'll send you a list of the things that we have done. And I actually have someone who handles all of the thank you gifts and employee recognition things, gifts and that kind of stuff.
May I step in too, because I've done, for some of the nonprofits I've worked with before, this sounds like one of those things I shouldn't have to say, but have it be something that they actually want. It's like, I'm a big geek. My boss knows that I'm a big geek, and so every once in a while he'll just be like, "Here's the coupon code for Best Buy," because he knows that would be something that I would want. Whereas if I get a coupon for a beauty salon, which I never go to, I'm going to be like, I don't feel very recognized.
Exactly. Right. You don't know me very well. Yeah. So I think digital detox or power off. Amazon gift cards. So we send out, there's a company that does these little boxes that you can put different things in, and it's they're really cool that we use. And if you email me, I can send you the information. But yeah, definitely. I had a referral partner who was a fitness enthusiast, for lack of a better term, and everybody would always send chocolate and food and all this stuff, and that I knew he did not eat. But I also knew that he had 3 little kids, and so I started sending him in our thank yous to him gift cards to the movies, to take his kids to the movies. So Fandango gift card as opposed to a big basket of food that he was giving away. So so just knowing that person, that would be figuring out a way to do that. But there's lots of cool stuff, and there's lots of branded stuff.
There's also, I'm assuming they still do this. This was a number of years ago, places where they give you a catalog where the person then can pick something out of the catalog, where it's like, there's speakers and movie tickets. And so it's like, there's a number of things and you get to pick one. So it's like, still limits the amount of money that you're spending, but gives them a choice as to what they get.
Free range. Yeah, my husband works for Zillow Group, and they are amazing at this. And they have a system, and I'll find out, those of you who want the information, if you email me, they have a system where they put a credit in, and I think this maybe what you're talking about, Angie. They put a credit in, and then it's a catalog that he chooses from, and he can accrue credits in that system, so he doesn't have to use it all at once, like points at Sephora, for those of us who know what that is. And so you can let them sit, or you can use them in this system. So I'll find out. That may be more work than people want, but it's definitely an option.
We've got about 5 more minutes left, so if any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat while we're waiting. I want to thank Ashley Loeb, Blassingame, for presenting today. Thanks as well to you for participating. Looks like we don't have any other questions.
I just want to say thank you, and please email me if you have specific questions. I mean, this was kind of general. There's a lot of maximum length of meetings you suggest. 90 minutes is probably max. People start to lose, and even then people start to lose interest. We sometimes let people drop out, start the meeting and drop out if the rest of, so in our recruiting meeting, we have recruiting for different departments, and we let some people drop out of the meeting once the stuff that they need to be there for has been finished, so that they don't have to sit through the entire meeting. But I would say most people can't sit for more than 90 minutes.
I was going to say, I just attended a webinar on how to do better webinars yesterday. Most of it was stuff I already knew, but there were some tips, and they just did a research survey and something like, and overall, anything over an hour, people just, especially on screen, people tend to start getting distracted and or eye strain and fatigue. So they really encourage to not do too many over an hour, because otherwise you just start getting drop off.
Oh, I have a really important tip. So we have started to get, a lot of us have started to get migraines and different headaches and stuff from being on, for years at this point. Blue light glasses, we buy people those, and there is a company called iJust, EY, I'll put it in here, EYE Just, and they have like screen protectors that go over your phone, iPad, your computer screen, and it blocks the blue light, and it does a really good job. And I was almost incapacitated by constant migraines, and I put them on all of my machines. And I also have blue light glasses. Makes a huge difference. People will start to not feel well, and they don't really know why. Oh, there we go. Another good software. Yeah, you can get things added to apps that do it as well. But I love the screen protectors too. But really important, you'll see people start to not feel well, fatigue, aches, nausea. That is definitely something that's real from staring at the screen all day long, every day. Really important to take 15-minute breaks every couple hours as well. So encourage, good technology hygiene.
Great. Okay, well, we hope you join us for future BHAP webinars. You can sign up for our various newsletters, which includes emails specific to upcoming events at our website, www.bhap.us. With that, this concludes today's webinar. Thanks again.